When am I going to know when he's ready? Are we ready to go? Okay. Okay, one more time. Welcome to Harrington Arts Center and to our Willard A. Palmer Festival. This is our 9th annual, and we're very proud to be able to present it, as you may have noticed in the extensive itinerary sheets that are floating around. We're very proud of the people who are playing here and of the beautiful place in which we can house their noble performances. My job today is to introduce Bill Palmer III, our Willard Palmer's son. Bill has entertained our audiences with his jaunty observations and jovial humor many times. His many talents include brilliant magical arts, skillful musical arts. His keen intellect is obvious with every sentence, as will be obvious during his presentations here, and his knowledge of electronic accordion developments. Bill has provided us great distinction through his several appearances here and through his donation of the estate of his father, actually his estate, our festival honoree. He continues this support to us by serving on the World of Accordions Museum Board of Directors and to the accordion world by bringing his expertise to many events. Now, that said, I have to tell you how we met. Bill and I were obviously at the University of Houston in the music department in the same years. Do you think I knew him? No, I didn't. We didn't meet until just a few years ago when he called me up and wanted one of my books. And we got to talking. He calls up and he says, "My name is Willard Palmer." And yes, I'm Willard Palmer. And we started rather a humorous conversation at that point and have been happily associated ever since. So I said to him, "You know where your father's estate needs to be?" And I suggested this place. And look at what's followed. Some pretty good ideas and pretty good effects. And so now I'm very happy to tell you that one of the effects is your ability to see and hear this magnificent, intelligent human being who has met almost everybody who is anybody in the music world and has happy memories but very specific details about those meetings and informations he's gathered, by far more than I can manage. So I think sharing his insights and his knowledge with you is a great gift. We can document a great deal more through this very action today. So, Mr. Bill Palmer, will you please come forward?
Thank you for that introduction, Helmi. You know, every time she introduces me, I think that she's reading my obituary. All right. Well, I'm really happy to be here again. Actually, at my age, I'm pretty happy to be just about anywhere. My name is Bill Palmer. I'm a magician, and this morning, I'm going to magish for you. Aren't you glad I'm not a wizard? Okay, you're all awake now. Good. That means you're going to have to listen or you're going to miss part of the show. If I were a real magician, I probably would want to have something mysterious to show you. So, let me see. I think that should do right there. Yes, a little red handkerchief. I played the part of Merlin the Magician for 26 years at the Texas Renaissance Festival, taking time out for meals. And when I researched the character, I read everything that had been published about Merlin the Magician. Now, that was some 40 years ago, and now the number of books has tripled or quadrupled, but I still read most of them. And I got a lot of the ideas that I used in my show out of the ones that people knew. One of the things that I did was I pretty well memorized the Disney film because I knew that all the kids would know that Merlin. And I also read all the Mary Stewart books, and it helped fill the character out. You have to know what you're talking about before you can play the part of somebody that was as pivotal in history as Merlin, if he actually existed. And I like to think that he did, at least for 26 years at the Renaissance Festival. I think I counted it up, and I must have entertained at least 200,000 people there total. And that's not easy to do when the stage only seats 800 people. We had 1,200 each most shows because we had 400 people standing. To get people to stand still for 20 minutes is no small feat, and neither were theirs. When I was researching Merlin, I discovered one of his very first pieces of magic. This one goes back to the year 235 BPOE. That's before pants or anything. It's called The Amazing Mystery of the Little Red Handkerchief. You can tell that this particular piece of magic originated before the printing press because of the name, The Amazing Mystery of the Little Red Handkerchief. That's a long name. Printers charged by the letter. After the invention of the printing press, he would have called it Red. First, Merlin would wave the handkerchief up and down. Boy, isn't that exciting. Merlin invented that, waving the handkerchief up and down. And to this day, every magician who performs this particular feat of magic waves the handkerchief up and down, and he has no idea where it came from. Merlin, right? Next, he would stuff it into the fist. Merlin also invented stuffing it into the fist. And that's become so commonplace that people expect it. I can never tell you how many times some child has called out to me from the front row of the theater, "Merlin, stuff it into your fist." Sometimes abbreviating it for purposes of brevity. Nevertheless, when he would wiggle his left thumb, which actually was not a magical gesture, it was the result of gout, the handkerchief would disappear. And that, thank you very much. Now, people always ask, where does it go? And I tell them, it goes up the sleeve. But not this sleeve, and not this sleeve. Sir, back there sitting at the edge of the aisle, would you come up to the stage for me, please? Now, don't turn your head around, just walk on up here. This is the part you'll find amazing. Step right on up. Okay, we're old friends, so this should be easy. Just stand and turn and face the audience. Never turn your back on the audience. That's how Abraham Lincoln got it. Now, would you raise your right arm up, please? Do you know why I ask you to raise your right arm up? Because it is physically impossible and grammatically incorrect to raise one's right arm down. Think about it, right? No, hold on, that's fine. Now turn your arm slowly toward me. Very good. There we go, right? There. Look at that. Amazing. What else have you got in there? An arm? A schnauzer? Oh, no, that's your armpit. Never mind. Thank you very much. Give him a big round of applause. It beats digging roads. Well, I advertised in the journal that we were going to talk about how the Palmer-Hughes accordion course happened. It didn't happen overnight. It took some years of development. And it all started with a bad piano teacher. Now, when my father was a child in Brookhaven, Mississippi, where his parents ran a print shop and printed a weekly newspaper, they discovered that he could make up tunes on the piano. There was an old piano in the house somewhere, and he would sit around and noodle on it and I think probably some of those things ended up in the accordion course. But when he was about 6 years old, his mother decided that he needed piano lessons. So she went to the local piano teacher, and he sat down with her, and he said, "Would you like me to play for you?" She says, No, you don't need to play for me. You're here to learn how to play the piano. Well, would you like me to play something that I've made up? No, you're not. You can't compose music. You don't know anything about it. And notice that there was this deep interview before this conversation took place. I think it was, "Do you have $2?" which was I think the going rate for lessons back then. Well, she said, "There's no way that you can compose music. You don't know anything about it." And this offended him. Those of you who knew my father will realize that this was fighting words, right? So after the lesson, he went home, and his mother said, "How was the piano teacher?" He said, "She was dumb." Why? She wouldn't let me play for her. She wanted me to play stupid pieces. Well, you don't have to go back. So some time passed, and a lady came into the newspaper office one afternoon and wanted to take out a classified ad. Her name was May Vardaman, and she and her sister had just moved to Brookhaven. She and her sister had graduated from Vanderbilt with degrees in music education. And they were now going to invade Brookhaven, Mississippi. Now, Brookhaven is a nice town. It's not as big and, let's say, complicated as Jackson is. But it's a nice town. It's a bedroom community. And they had a nice place to live, and this newspaper kept everybody in touch with each other. It came out weekly. My grandfather used to say, the New York Times, the Chicago Times motto is today's news today, and our news is last week's news tomorrow. So Ms. Vardaman wanted to take out an ad in the paper, and my grandmother said, "What do you do?" "Well, I teach piano." "Oh, perhaps we could make an arrangement." Now, all of you out here are musicians. Some of you are full-time musicians, which means that there are times that you have to take on other work, or you have to teach, or you have to do something that may not be exactly what you want to do with your music. But getting a free ad is as good as anything. I mean, this was a good deal. So Dad went to study with May Vardaman, and she listened to him. She had a grand piano in her living room, and when he would come in for a lesson, he'd arrive an hour early, and she had 2 or 3 studios in the house. She would be teaching at someone in one studio, her sister would be in the other, and he would sit down and run scales for an hour. Where are all the students like that? My gosh, I remember when I was teaching banjo and guitar for H&H Music Company, I had students that practiced 30 minutes a week. I saw it right in my studio. They'd come in. I had one student who was so good that he could come in and sight read anything I put in front of him, but he never practiced any of it. I said, "Why are you wasting your parents' money?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "You never practice." He said, "How do you know?" I said, "I'm a teacher. We know." And he didn't realize he'd answered the question himself. How did you know? Yep. That means, you got me. Well, he would do that, and then he would go in and he would play. And he could sight read just about anything. I don't know how long it took him to do this. But by the time he was 13 years old, he had a radio show in Jackson, Mississippi. And, he'd come in and he'd play. He'd have sheet music. He'd sight read. He'd pick something up off a record. He did all that kind of stuff. Most of you knew him or had some contact with him. You know what he could do. It seems like he could do that almost from the word go. But, growing up around something like that, this is intimidating because basically If any of you studied German literature, you probably read Hildebrands Lied. How many of you are familiar with Hildebrands Lied at all? Okay, Helmi knows, okay. This is a story about two soldiers that meet on the field of battle. And when one of them is getting ready to kill the other one of them says, "I'm your father." And that's it, the eternal conflict between father and son. And we had that in spades. Because he always, I knew I couldn't play the accordion as well as he could. I mean, there's no way. This is like getting thrown into a room with Dick and Tino and saying, "Okay, do that." Yeah? Okay. But I always liked the accordion, and I always played an accordion of some kind or another. You'll hear later why I don't play the accordion much anymore. But anyway, he had that radio show, and then somebody introduced him to an accordion, and the details of this are somewhat slim. We're not sure when it happened, but we know it happened before he got into college. He was still playing that radio show in Jackson. Now, this was a live show because they just didn't have recording equipment before the Second World War. Really, the Germans invented the best accordion equipment, and we pinched the patents. That's a common occurrence. We also pinched Bayer aspirin. They were not happy with that, but hey, you know, things happen. So Dad had a request for the Holy City. I think most of you are familiar with the song. It's the one that has the Jerusalem, Jerusalem, dum 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 dum, and then the piano goes, you know, like that. So he had this printed up on 5 pieces of paper, and he had 2 music stands up, and this paper was all Scotch taped together. And he's sitting in the studio, sight reading the Holy City from a piano score on his accordion. And right in the middle of the song, somebody decides that it's too warm in the studio. They turn on the ceiling fan, and the music goes. So he noodles around on the bass, picks the thing up like that. Sort of like Dick did with Comanchero, right? Okay, then he finishes up the song, and nobody said anything negative about it. He got mail from it that said, "That was a very interesting improvisation on the Holy City," and he never told anybody why that happened, but he let me know. And of course, since everybody likes to have stories about people that they are acquainted with or deal with, I think everybody needs to know that story. So file that one away in your memory banks and share it with your friends. He would have been proud. He actually was rather proud of that moment. That was one of his defining moments. After he left Mississippi, he moved to Houston briefly, and sometime around 1942, I was born. And, he got married in the interim, and I had a mother. Some of you knew Mom, and she was actually part of the driving force behind Willard Palmer, both of us. Anyway, he was teaching for a fellow named Joe Bell, who had a studio upstairs over a place called Howard's Fun Shop. This was a place that sold magic tricks and jokes and novelties and things like whoopee cushions and all those cultural icons that we have come to know and love so well in this country. And Howard was also a part-time booking agent for magicians and musicians. So Dad would end up on the show with some of the local magicians. Just the idea was, "Hey, Palmer, can you come over here and play something behind me while I do my cigarette act," or whatever. He liked to do that. He loved magic. And when I was born, the first 3 people that came to see me at St. Joseph's Hospital in Houston were Howard Campbell, who owned the Fun Shop, Cal Emmett, who was a USO performer, a magician, and Sigmar the Great, who was actually an insurance salesman, but that didn't matter. He was still a magician, and I kind of looked up to him when I was a kid. But I was cursed from birth. I was going to be a magician or I was going to be a musician, and it turned out I was both. And the fun part about it was the magic stuff took me all over Europe, not so much as a performer, but as a translator. When I went to college, I got a degree in German and learned how to speak it fairly well. And I learned how to translate. And I translated a lot of German magic books into English. And they sold. I don't know why. I didn't realize there was that much of an interest in what I was translating, but hey, it was cool. And I paid for my first ticket overseas. And that led to me getting booked on some shows and giving lectures and all sorts of stuff like that. And now when I go to Vienna or go to Berlin or go to Munich or any of the other cities where German is spoken, and I run into a magician, they recognize me on the street. They'll come up and talk to me. And sometimes it's disconcerting for Julie because she has no idea that any of these people would know what I look like. But I was always careful to make sure I had my picture in the back of the book or something, you know. But it was always a fun thing going over there because I got to see sites that I only learned about when I was taking German at Rice. Things like the Brandenburg Gate, things like some of the better musical instrument museums. There's one in Berlin called it's called the Berlin Musical Instrument Museum, but it was founded by Kurt Sachs, who wrote the history of musical instruments that those of you who had a college music course in music history, you read that book, and you looked at some of the weird instruments in that book, and you said, could these be real? Yep, they're there. And I didn't realize he had founded that museum until I went and visited it. My first wife and I were walking through the museum, and I'm looking at these instruments and saying, I know that one. That clavichord. Wait a minute. And went down in the basement, and there was a glass cabinet, a table-like, that had what he called Scherzinstrumente, joke instruments. These were things his students had kludged together with sealing wax and bamboo and pieces of horn and feathers and stuff like that, and presented, look what we found in a dig they hadn't bothered to put any dirt on it, so he knew it wasn't an archaeological dig. But sometimes they got in the book, and then he found out later that he had been duped. But he put it all out there, and this was a magnificent thing. Every instrument that was in that book was in his collection, and the building itself is as big as this, and it's just full of cool instruments. So if you ever go to Berlin, go to the Musical Instrument Museum. It's beautiful. And then the other one was this. And you've seen this probably if you go to the Alfred Publications site or if you go to Faith Defner's Accordion column. They talk about his doctorate that he received at the University of Leipzig. That never happened. What happened was in 1938, he got a scholarship to study piano at the University of Leipzig. But there was some friction between Germany and the U.S. at the time, and so he didn't go. And he actually never visited Leipzig until probably 1989 or so. But still, he got to go over there, and still he got his doctorates, but that wasn't from the University of Leipzig. But it made such a good story that Alfred still keeps it up on the publishing company's website. I don't know whether he likes that. He would have liked that or not, but hey, you know, that's their business. So he moved back to Houston after the war, and he set up a studio over on Prospect Street, right across from the big Lutheran church where Stas plays concerts every so often, about twice a year in Houston. The building's gone now. In fact, the street is now blocked off, so you can't even drive your car from the church down to where we lived, which is just half a block away. But he partnered up with a fellow named Ray Smith, who was a percussionist, and Ray taught vibes and drums in one studio, and then Dad taught accordion and the rest of the house. And there were about 6 studios at that time. And we had this big parlor that was large enough that you could put in an accordion symphony or a band and all that. So we had band rehearsals every night, and he had all these studios around the house. And then Bill Hughes got out of the Navy. That would have been in 46. By that time, Dad had his master's in music ed from University of Houston, and he had convinced Mr. King to allow an accordion major at University of Houston, provided that the first graduating class was good. Well, the first graduating class were Langley, Alley, and Bill Hughes. Okay, he threw in some ringers. It's okay. He got the gig. And so he taught accordion there for 18 years. But getting back to the development of the course, when Bill came out, Ray knew that he was going to have to give up his half of the business, so Dad bought out that half of the business, and Ray moved on to teaching band at one of the independent school districts around Houston. And the last time I saw him, he was in Madisonville, and his son had become an attorney and had done some really nice casework, so they were doing fine. But Bill comes out of the Navy, and now it's like a family reunion because Bill had taken accordion lessons from him when he was teaching for Army Brown in Jackson. And they were ready to start teaching music on a serious basis. So there was this kid, I think he was about 19 years old or so, who everybody really liked the way he played the accordion. I can't remember the name. What was it? Something like Continental. Oh, Dick Contino, that was it. There was a guy named Dick Contino who did something most people had never seen before, and that was the bellows shake. Now, Dad had written 6 solos for Alfred Music Company, and they'd all been published, and they all sold pretty well. Of course, when you think about it, there were not a lot of people who could write accordion arrangements. Charlie Magnati, Dad, Charles Nunzio, there were Eugene Ottori wrote a bunch of them. There were a lot of them, but the pedagogy methods were just not really great. If you want to understand why they were like they were, go to some place that sells music books and buy a copy of the R-band method for cornet, or just thumb through it. You don't have to buy it. But you'll realize that this is not a good way to teach kids how to play a cornet. But it worked because it was the only thing they had. This is the way Louis Armstrong learned how to play the trumpet. Here he was in the orphanage. They handed him a cornet. They handed him the R-band book, and he learned how to play out of it. And from time to time, when people would come in and say, "Where'd you get all those licks you play when you're taking your breaks?" "You a trumpet player?" "Yeah." "You ever seen the R-band book?" "Yeah." "You know them exercises in the back, those hard ones that you tried to play?" I said, "Yeah." "That's them." So that was what was good about our band, but what was bad about it was one lump. It's like, "Would you like a bowl of soup?" "Okay." You can't teach people by throwing the bowl of soup in their face. So he broke it down, left very little room for imagination. You put your finger here, you put your finger here, you push. And, that was what they needed. They needed things that also looked pleasant when you open the book. You open a book, and all you see is a shower of notes. It's like getting hit in the face with a bucket of water. If you open a book and you see a picture of kids having fun, and you see some big enough notes that you can determine what they are, then you're not intimidated by that piece of music, and you'll get into it. Okay, so back to Dick Contino. Nobody knew how to do the bellows shake. Now, Dick did not invent the bellows shake, and he didn't claim to invent the bellows shake. Pietro Frosini introduced the bellows shake to the United States. And actually, Pietro Frosini introduced a lot to the United States. He didn't play a piano accordion. He played a chromatic button accordion, a B system. And he had a free bass. He didn't have a single chord on that instrument. It was 105 notes, I believe, is that right? 105 notes, 5 rows, arranged in a very logical order to Pietro Fossini, and he could play like a madman on that thing. But Dick Contino was the guy that brought it in front of people at the right time. So Sam Maness, who was the owner of Alfred Publishing Company, or Alfred Music Company it was called back then, he was a Tin Pan Alley guy. They owned things like Alexander's Ragtime Band, and several other pieces that you'll remember. Ragtime Cowboy Joe, that was one of their big ones. And Sam told Marty, he says, I need a guy to write a bellows shake book. Who do we know that can do the bellows shake? I don't know. You talk to Frosini, maybe he could do it. No, I talked to him. He's old. He's tired. He doesn't want to do that. No. What about that kid that used to live in Mississippi that moved to Houston? You think he could do it? I don't know. I'll call him. So they called Dad up and said, can you write a book about the bellows shake? He says, well, I don't do a bellows shake. I think I know how it works. But I'll see what I can do. Now, I'm putting this together from little pieces of information that I've dredged up from my memory about 2 years ago. Dad comes in one night and he says, would you like to go see Horace Heidt? Dick Contino is playing with him. I don't know. I was 7 years old. I don't know. He says, this guy's one of the greatest showmen alive. I said, okay. So we went to see the Horace Heidt show. And the last act comes on, and he's got this accordion, and he's built like little Abner. And he's got hair like the waves of the ocean, and a million teeth. You can see them all the way to the back of the room, and you can count them if you want to. And he plays Lady of Spain at the end of his act, and as he does, he's doing the bellows shake, he starts doing a back bend with an accordion, and he's doing it on purpose. And he recovers from the back bend. That was important. And he brought the house down. And Dad's watching him like an eagle. We're sitting in the back of the hall now, but Dad's eyes were a lot better then and a lot better than mine. And he figured it out. So he wrote a book called Mastery of the Bellows Shake, which is still can be gotten from Busso Music, I believe. The originals are long since gone. I had a couple. I said one time, Stas said something during a clinic about the bellows shake that this isn't in Palmer-Hughes, and I said, well, not really, but I'm going to send you where it is, and I sent him a copy of it. So anyway, they published the book, and it sells pretty well because it was the only book out there about the bellows shake. It was the first book that really described the mechanics of it. So Alfred decides that Cedlon and Howloretta and Wahoo could be beaten. These were the three main courses back in the old days. There was also the international course, which is a mail order course that you could get from Sears or through an ad in the back of Popular Mechanics. And you could learn how to play the accordion like a mechanic, I guess. These books, they were not terrible, but they were not attractive. They wouldn't make a student feel like he'd accomplished something other than getting through the book. You get through the end of Palmer-Hughes Book 1. What do you see in the back of it, Joanne? Diploma. That's right. You see a diploma. And they're doing this with kids in kindergarten now. You graduate from kindergarten, you get a diploma. You graduate from 6th grade, you get a diploma. You graduate from junior high school, you get middle school, you get a diploma. You get a diploma when you get out of high school. That one counts. No one ever says, do you have a diploma from kindergarten when you're applying for a job? And they don't say, do you have a diploma from 6th grade? Huh? No. But they do say, did you graduate from high school? And that's an important one. When I was working as a magician, I ended up doing a fairly large show. I had 2 assistants. At one time I had 3. And I had one little thing that I often used to judge whether I was going to hire somebody. And that was, how much college do you have? Well, I dropped out. If he said, I dropped out, I said, well, okay, thank you. And I sent him on their way because I know he's going to quit halfway through the festival and I'll be left holding the bag. But if they made it through college or if they've gone back to college from dropping out, then I hire them, and I've never missed. So that was a good thing. Anyhow, back to the Palmer-Hughes thing. Sam Maness was a good businessman. So was Morty. And they decided that if the kid could sell books on the Bellow Shake, maybe the kid could sell an accordion course. So they called him up, and they said, do you think you could write an accordion course? 3 volumes, get someone up to an intermediate level so they can maybe go out and play a polka gig or something. Now that's kind of demeaning toward polka musicians, and I know we've got a lot of you in the room, and I admit that I have played a lot of polkas, and I enjoy playing them, and that's not a reflection on your level of musicianship at all. But this is what he wanted people to be able to do. He wanted them to be able to play the accordion. And you get to the end, you got to the end of that book 3, and you could play the accordion. But then they realized that people were getting through the books too fast. So they stretched it to 6 books. And that was the old Palmer-Hughes course. It took about 2 years for that to happen. And then there was the third, there are actually 2 more expansions. They got up to book 9, and then they did book 10. 6 through 9 were actually 1 through 6, expanded again, but more exercises and stuff in the middle, so it really thoroughly taught the people how to play. And that was another thing that was very important, is if you got some of these other courses, you didn't have any speed drills or digital exercises, and since Hannon and Czerny were both in the public domain, Dad would pick out what fit with the next piece in the book, and he would put those in there. If you teach through Palmer-Hughes, and if you don't, why not? If you teach through Palmer-Hughes, you'll notice that the exercises generally are related to the piece that follows. And there's a good reason for that. Why do you want to waste energy learning an exercise that you're not going to use? And that's important. When I was studying at the University of Houston, I had a piano instructor who said, don't waste a lot of time on exercises if you're not going to be a concert pianist. Learn the songs you need to play, and then learn exercises that are related to them. But you don't need to dig into Hannon and Czerny unless you're going into competition level playing. And they were right, because really, if you knew a handful of really good pieces on the instrument, you could convince people you were a piano player. That's a very important thing. If those of you who are just kind of getting into the accordion, people who've been playing for maybe 4 or 5 years and so forth, learn a few snow pieces. Learn a few things that when you play them, everybody will say, wow, she's good, or wow, she's excellent. And then once you've done that, you build your confidence level up, and you can go for those other things that you thought were too hard to learn. I actually met a young lady at one of the accordion retreats who had taught herself to play the accordion by going through the entire 10 books of the Palmer-Hughes accordion method. Now, that's not easy to do. She really wanted to play the accordion, and she was pretty darn good. There were things she did that were a little weird, but I'm not going to criticize her playing. Mine's worse. So, that's the truth. Let me check and see what kind of time we have. Oh, good. So, this is the conditions of a perfect storm. You have material. He had already written most of this material to teach the students he already had. You had a need for it. you had an inspiration, and you had all of the ingredients you needed to make something that was going to be a viable product. Now, the interesting part about it is some people still want to teach by Sedlon or want to teach by Howell Loretta. And they were not published there for a while. Now they're published again. You know who publishes them? Alfred. They bought the rights to them. So if you want to learn the old way, you can. There's some people who believe the best way to learn an accordion is to buy every teaching method you can get, and then you can learn everything you want to, and that may not be the best thing. If you have things that are graduated properly, and I think most of you who teach here would say that this is the way that the course works, there's very clever things involved in that course. And I'm never, ever, ever not proud to be pointed out as the son of the guy who wrote, in my opinion, the best accordion course that's ever been written. The thing that makes it pretty good is this: it's still being published after 70 some odd years. It's still being published, and that's really, really a good sign. So I want to thank Dick Contino for being the man who started the perfect storm. I want to thank my dad for picking up on it. And I want to thank all of you for being here and supporting the World of Accordions Museum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill. We're going to take a short break here while we prepare the stage for the next performance. A reminder to those of you that are viewing this online, there is a link below the video description for making a donation to continue to support our digital outreach, which is how we are making these live streams available. So we really appreciate your support. We really need your support to continue to be able to offer these live streams. So we are going to put up a video while a recording of a video while we prepare the stage for the next performer. could we have everyone return to their seats, please? We're going to get ready for our next performance. And just a reminder, if you have your cell phones on, if you could please turn those off. No one wants to be that person that has their cell phone tweet during a concert. And I'm going to check mine just so I'm not that person. So welcome back to our people attending by live stream. We appreciate you having us with you. And I think we're going to have Helmi come up and introduce our next performer.
Well, I want to tell you about Paul Vargason. Paul has been a student of mine since he was, would you believe, 4 years old. He is such a nice young man and well-versed in everything accordion because he studied along with his mother the diatonic instruments pretty early on, and of course now plays mostly piano accordion. Over the course of years, I've taken him to many competitions. He's won the AAA Junior National Championship when he was 9. And it's been one good opportunity and event after another. Paul has some physical maladies, which you will see don't inhibit his playing or his skill factors. So I'm very pleased to tell you that he is now in his late 20s and happily playing where he can, when he can. I'm glad that he's playing for us today because he's very good on button diatonic, piano accordion, stradella, and free bass, chromatic accordions, stradella, and free bass. I don't see a chromatic here, but if you want one, we've got something for you to use. Let me introduce Paul Vargason, who lives on the edges of Superior. And again, we're very proud of you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. I'm going to start out playing button diatonic accordion, which was made specifically for me by Helmi from the Bavarian factory in Italy. She knew I loved the Helican basses, and I don't know how they did it, but they honk. And honk, and honk. And when I first got the Helican, I couldn't get them right. I couldn't play them right. It took me about 6 months to figure out how to play a Helican bass. I haven't quit since. We're going to start out, concert is of course for Lauren Lindevig. He, along with Florian Chmielewski and Venglevski, were pretty instrumental in my formative years, which I look back on now and say, wow, I knew the best of the best in this area. The last time I saw Lauren was at Polka Fest, I would say 4 years ago. He sat down and back and through Helmi requested this song, Top of the Hill Polka. I gotta sit down. Another one of my favorites. Helmi, I think you like this one too, because she quite often requests it. And when he was making this program, it was, okay, what goes with Top of the Hill? Slovenian Home. Here it is, Slovenian Home Polka, which is, I like to say, one of my favorites too. I've played it with I don't know how many. Shelby sitting back there, her father, Ron Setniker, Vernon Steve Meisner, Alex Mexner. It's just one, it's kind of like a rite of passage for diatonic players. If you can't play Slovenian Home, you're not a diatonic player. To go to Slovenia now, I usually have something in front of me that says Button Box Feature Band and 2 Slovenian flags out of it, mainly because this is a keyed Slovenian diatonic, which is one of, if I remember, 56 different keys, around the 50 mark, different types of button diatonics that are around today. Diatonic is the national instrument of Slovenia the last time I knew. You might want to Google that just to make sure. And they are noted for some of the most phenomenal diatonic players in the world. Among them is the composer of this song, Luja Slak, who I look up to and actually got me interested in the Slovenian diatonic, not the Cleveland Slovenian, which is a little bit different because we Americanize everything over here. One of my, every song's my favorite on here, I swear. I think it's also the first Slovenian that I learned on here, glass harmonica. kind of stick in Slovenia here for another couple songs. First one is Terazinka. And if you're just learning Slovenian, there's a way to figure out how to say it. If you say, tear the sink out, you're going to get it close. And then from there, you can morph it into Terazinka. A band actually did record it as tear the sink out. So, Terazinka. Okay, so I went into the Kamnik polka there. It doesn't matter, does it? We're having fun, aren't we? I'm working up here. I'm not having fun. A gentleman from the Iron Range, Ron Setniker, who was inducted into the Cleveland Polka Hall of Fame a couple years ago now. A very, very accomplished diatonic player, composer, arranger, mentor. Shelby sitting back there. Ron Setniker and myself played at Iron World. Let me count now. I'm out of fingers. So many times. I played with Ron, I don't know how many other places. One of the songs that he wrote, actually I'm going to play two of them. I think one of his most famous has to be Grandpa John's polka. The last one I'm going to play on here is another one of Ron Setniker's, which ties into where I met Lauren Lindevik, which is Iron World. Trying to think back, it had to have been 1995 is when I met Lauren, Florian Shimoleski, the whole gang. So I'm going to play Iron World Polka, which is another Ron Setniker song. got the best scientific minds in the world, aka my cats, home working on the question, how come that accordion is so light but so much work? Oh. As some of you may know, I have 3 pancardions at home. One from the 70s, one from the 1960s, and this one from the 1950s. I have named them Jim Bag, which is my one from the 1970s, as a gentle reminder, when you are done playing in 80-degree heat, please wipe off your accordion. The one from the 1960s I named Gramps. This one, I wasn't kind to it. I named it Geezer. The reason I got this accordion is I wanted a good polka accordion. And it was Lauren Lindevig's. But I wanted a good polka accordion. Now, what in my mind, which is warped beyond belief, makes a good polka accordion? Okay, first, you need a good low reed, which some pans that I've come across do not have a good low reed, especially from the 50s, and if they've been Yankovic tuned. They're quite often sharp, shrill, deplorable, downright disgusting, politically incorrect, and so on and so on and so on. However, they're great if you want to repel people. This one, on the other hand, I picked it up and I thought it had a tone chamber in it. Here's why. I'm going to play a song which is along the entertainment lines that I'd play, that Lauren would play. And it shows off the low reed in all its splendor and glory. This is my first qualification for a polka accordion. The other qualification is when I'm playing something slow that puts people to sleep, I love to be able to do a tremolo on the right hand. Now, this being an older accordion, sometimes they just don't respond. They look at you, well, I'm retired, I'm old enough, I've done all my hard work. So you got to look at it and we're going to do this. Now you just quit your complaining, this is what we're going to do. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. This accordion, no problem. This accordion is a low and 3 mids. This was my other qualification. Low, 3 mids, 2 sharp, 1 flat. Yankovic tuned. Okay, it needs to be able to do the Yankovic sound, which Lauren appreciated, I appreciate. I know a few in here do as well. So, I'm going to play something Yankovic. Another qualification I had is it needed to be able to have just a slight beat and play almost anything I wanted. So I brought it home after playing for, I don't know, hour and a half on it here, went home, thought about it. Helmi called me, are you still interested in it? He said, yeah, I'm still interested in it. Well, come on, we gotta get this all figured out. Well, we got it all sorted, and I sat back there. I played it for another half hour, 45 minutes. Yeah, we won it. Do all that fun stuff, you know. Ended up out on the street for about 6 months trying to pay for this thing, but, you know, that stuff happens. By the way, the addition on the house is almost done, so. Anyway, it needed to have a beat, because I played German, I play Scandinavian, Cleveland, Slovenian, French, no Italian, no Russian. It needed to be able to do everything. So, it does everything. Here's a little, I'm going to do some Scandinavian, starting with something Finnish. It's not the Sakijärven. Hands don't want to do that today. So I'm going to play something charming called Metsukukia. Okay, now I've got the Scandinavian bug. Just play one Scandinavian song, and I want to play more Scandinavian. So, a staple of Lauren's performances, especially at the Cloquet VFW, was what he called the circle schottisch. All the dancers get in a circle and they do schottisch. And, you know, just a good old-fashioned, like you'd find at the county dance every Saturday night back in the old days. So, I'm going to do a little bit of circle schottisch here. Give me a second here. Okay. Sometimes you're playing, you know, and your hand just wants, I gotta shake. It's all shook out now. I'm shook up. Are you guys still having fun? Okay, good. There's one. Trying to think what else Lauren would play. Done Yankovic. One more Scandinavian?
Well, he'd play a hymn. He would play
I can do a hymn. Yeah, we're in a church. Got a converter accordion?
Amazing Grace.
Got a converter piano accordion? Grab it.
One or two.
I'd like to hear the musette for Hada, which is not Laura Lindevig's province, but your own.
Oh. Well, while Helmi's getting the converter piano accordion, Helmi actually requested this one. I didn't forget. At least I don't think I did. It's one I wrote for a friend of a friend, and it's in the French style. Okay, I got it now. It's called Musette for Kathy. Oh, jeez. Just when I thought they couldn't get any heavier. Helmi, is this yours? Okay. of these times I'm going to lift this the wrong way and risk serious bodily harm. Titano Emperor. Helmi, yours is wet tuned, isn't it? In the middles? Okay. Mine is dry tuned. That's the only difference between the two, I think.
I think they're pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You need to adjust the straps.
They're fine.
Then speak well of me.
It means I need to join Weight Watchers. I am watching my weight go up and up and up and up and up. Okay. Okay, that's the double. I gotta find everything over here. Give me a second. Uh-oh. Okay. Sorry about that. This is my own arrangement of Palmer-Hughes' version of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, merged with a version sung by the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Was, as I said, my own arrangement from, it's almost 20 years old. I took it to AAA in 2002 when it was in Minneapolis. It won first place. The judges' one critique was, as some of you know, the Palmer-Hughes version starts with an arpeggio, and the judge's complaint was the student needs to work on his arpeggios. I showed that judge, I cut it off. I mean, it's your arrangement. You can do with the song as you see fit within reason. The other thing I did was I turned it from stradella into a converter piece so I can get a little counter melody, a little bass, which the converter allows the performer to do. It's basically individual notes over there. Is it 4 or 7 octaves? 7.
In the left hand.
Yeah.
6 in the right hand.
Yeah, it's almost the range of a piano when you think of it. But as you can tell, it's a lot more portable. Probably not much lighter, but... Oh, did I say that? Okay. Anyway, Battle Hymn of the Republic. I've got one more song, and it's an old big band song. And I told myself, no Cleveland Sylvania. No one's listening. Besides that, I can conveniently forget something if I want, especially if it's something that I told myself, hey, you need to stick to this because you said you were going to do so. I can throw that out the window. Besides that, it's not in writing, so where's the proof I said I wasn't going to? Anyway. It's a song, Everywhere You Go. It's everywhere you go, sunshine follows you. Everywhere you go, skies are always blue. And you know, when you listen to a polka, be it Scandinavian, German, Polish, Czech, Slovenian, Cleveland Slovenian, any genre of polka music, if it doesn't leave you smiling, they played it wrong. So, gotta find it. It's a hard thing about switching accordions. Nothing's in the right place. On that one, nothing's in the right place. On that one has no shifts. Everything's in the wrong place.
Thank you, Paul. We're going to have a break for lunch. I think they're getting it set up in back, and we'll be back, I think, at 1 o'clock.